So I saw the Monster Type Festival ban list, and I don't own a single complete deck that's completely legal in the event. So I'm gonna show you what I cobbled together with what I do have. Now, if you do own a Fairy or Fiend type deck, and if you want me to, I could go over all the decks that are and all the archetypes that are playable in the event and which ones are hit the least, and show what possible archetypes you can play. But for now, this is what I have. As you'll see, it's DESPIA and just DESPIA, because you know what happened with all the Albaz cards and stuff like that. So we're back on the Edge Imp engine because that's the best thing we can use now. Gonna draw a couple cards, banish the Tragedy, activate Tragedy, add the Alibur. Let's see what we get off the Desires. Banish anything useful? Not really, no. Oh, nice. This guy's makes an appearance. I'm going to show you what you do with this. So normal Alibur. See what we need. Let's add a Despia, Feeler of the Branded. Activate this. Fusion summon into Masquerade with Edge Imp and Dramaturge. There's one Masquerade. Trigger both effects. The Patchwork, it's just a card in hand. And we'll make a second Masquerade. Let's get the Outlet in the grave. And we'll just get back the Banish Tragedy. And set a brand in red. So now we have double Masquerade plus Dramaturge. And a Tragedy on field with brand in red set. And those of you Dark World players know where the Morningstar is going. Yes, AI, take that 1200. Yeah, just burn. We're back to Masquerade Turbo, pre-Brand Diffusion, pre all the Albaz support, just on pure Despia. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you just wait this out. And during your opponent's turn, you will brand and red back so that you have 3 fairies plus a Morningstar. Then you make first Dark Lord on your opponent's turn. The first Dark Lord, if you didn't know, pops all your opponent's cards. And fairy monsters you control, including this thing, cannot be targeted. We'll add an Alibur back. Special back Dramaturge. And yeah, they'll protected, but it's fine because we have a huge beater on the field and they already burned themselves. From an Alibur. Funny note, our first Dark Lord can summon back Alibur and Adlet from your grave, because they can special summon all the fairy monsters. All of your Despia monsters, main deck ones, are fairy monsters, so you can bring this back as follow-up too, which is really funny. Yeah, this is always enough for a game after you set up a couple Masquerades turn 1 and then you Dark Lord your opponent. You first Dark Lord your opponent on their turn. So yeah, this Dark Lord package is really good for going second too, unsurprisingly. An untargetable board wipe, yeah, seems pretty good. And let's add Gold Sark. Away the Tragedy so we can get us our Alibur. Activate Allure. Nice, we got the Adlib anyways. And we can just fire off the poly right now, go into first Dark Lord, fusing these three without even normal summoning. First Dark Lord effect will trigger to nuke the entire field. Cannot target it, cannot imperm it whatsoever, and then we can even chain block it using the Adlib. Which then lets us special back to Alibur, nuke their field, activate Alibur, get us... Honestly, does not matter right now in the slightest, but let's get a... For an Adlib engrave, we could brand in red or branded or Despia Feeler to branded. Let's get brand in red. Since we have not normal summoned yet. In normal summon the Edgem Chain. After nuking their field, attack directly. And put them on one card activation during their turn. Put the brand in red back the Adlib to hand. Special summon back Masquerade. With the Alibur and Adlib. And summon back the Alibur, which will get us another search. Yeah. So basically oh man. That's basically the gist of it. Yeah, somehow, you know, Despia was the only deck where I had all the cards for. I don't have really other Fiend or Fairy decks at my disposal, and the only reason I have the first Dark Lord is because I rolled this when I was opening for Forbidden Droplets. So yeah, this is the only non branded Despia staple UR that you need. If you have branded Despia, you generally will have all the makings for this deck already. You can even go more Dark Lord route if you're a Dark Lord player, which I'm not, and I don't have Superbias. So I just put these three in. The goal is like pretty simple. It's if you draw into Dark Lord Morningstar, going second, you can nuke the board with a first Dark Lord that can't be targeted, and you can easily chain block it from stuff like Strike and or other stuff with Dramaturge and Adlib. And going first, you set up, depending on if you draw Dark Lord Morningstar or not. If you don't draw Dark Lord Morningstar, you just set up a bunch of Masquerades, as many Masquerades as possible. I'm not sure, I don't think people are going to be running Lava Golem in this event, considering it's going to be a heavy Labyrinth dominated event. So yeah, you're gonna burn a lot of damage trying to play through, which makes it awkward to try and kill you. Like, you generally won't die with Masquerades in the field because they're gonna stop their plays early just to get rid of this. and then these can come back if they're playing a deck that special summons from the extra deck. So yeah, and if you happen to draw Morningstar going first, you set up Brand and Red to be able to first Dark Lord Morningstar your opponent on their turn, and then it's like Black Rose Dragon, just nuke their entire field on their turn. If this ever hits the field, it's really hard to stop, like I mentioned, since you can't target this. You also can't target any Dramaturges or Alibers that are also on the field because they're also fairy monsters. That's why this is that's why the Despians are still legal. For someone can explain the lore, because I didn't read it. And for the ratios, right? We're maxing out on all the good Despian monsters. All of these, because there's no brand fusion. Fusions aren't free, so the Despian monsters we choose, they basically provide you another fusion material by either special summoning it or adding it to hand with Tragedy after you fused them already. Edgem Chain's the same way. So the only Despia monster I'm not running is Comedy, because Comedy doesn't get you extra fusion material once you fuse with it, so it's kind of not very useful. And the Edgem package is really nice since we need a hard draw fusion cards now. Basically, there's no 10 ways to search random fusion, one card combo. So this provides you this with the Patchworks, lets you add fusion spells and get you a fusion material to hand that you can use later. It's also good with Allure because we want to dig as deep as we can in our deck, so we're also running triple Desires and triple Allure just to see as many fusion cards and as many fusible monsters as we can. Foolish and Goatsark are both for the Tragedies to get you your Alibur, but if you already have Alibur, or you already Sugar Tragedy, you can just dump one of these 6 monsters to revive a Brand Red is another way to fuse. Despia, Feelers are branded, is just searchable poly if you have too much fusion material but not enough fusion spells. And keep in mind, this has an effect, that has a floating effect. So like if a face-up non-fusion fairy monster on the field, like any Despia monster, gets destroyed by card effect or battle, you can revive a fusion monster from the grave. So it's like a loop where if somehow you have like a Coridas or a Proskenion in the grave, you could your Despia monster dies, it revives your fusion monster, then if they remove the fusion monster, the Alibur comes back. So yeah, they ought to get rid of your monsters 3 times to clear you. And triple Brand and Red, because this is actually a very good fusion spell, since everything we're going to be fusing is like with poly and continuous field spell poly. So the materials do hit the grave, and since they hit the grave, they're going to be live they're going to be viable targets for Brand and Red turn 1 all the time. So you want to draw into this, and you also want this for your opponent's turn for the Morningstar, for the first Dark Lord Morningstar field nuke play. And then I just run I have 1 red reboot, so I'll run the 1 red reboot, I guess, and the 1 Duster. There's the extra deck, you don't really need 3 Masquerades. If you're a Despia player, you probably have 2 Masquerades already, so the 3rd one is like just for comedy purposes. Generally, you don't need to, but if you get the 3rd one up and your opponent can't out it, it's really funny. And Magic Heat Deity this effect, this is a vanilla, this is just a Blue Eyes White Dragon. But you need a rank 8, because with Masquerades, the Masquerades will revive themselves, but once they revive themselves, they'll be banished once they go to the grave again. So in order to avoid that, if you get 2 Masquerades that are revive themselves, they don't like burn down anymore after they special themselves, so they don't really do anything, they're just vanillas. You can overlay them into this, so that when this dies, they'll go back in the grave, and then you can keep reviving them that way. Obviously against the matchup that uses extra deck monsters, so probably not Lap, but other decks, like DDD, you could constantly revive back your Masquerades. The Link monsters are you can link summon very often because the only card that fusion locks you is Branded Opening, and you do have a lot of extra bodies on the field, often with stuff like Adlib and Dramaturge reviving cards, so you can't go into link plays. Though the only two that you generally go into are Muckraker, Muckraker, sorry. Whoa, sorry, Muckraker. Far from a moment. This can revive any of your fusions, because all your fusion monsters are Fiend. So, yeah, and Condemned Dark Lord is very funny. You make this with 2 fairy monsters. So turn 1, if you have Branded and Red live, or if you have a Branded and Red, you can turn any 2 fairies, so like Alibur and Dramaturge, or Adlib and Reviving Tragedy with an Alibur, turn them into Condemned Dark Lord, then Condemned Dark Lord, add the Dark Lord Morningstar to your hand. And then you have the field nuke set up that way. The extra other Link monsters don't really matter, but it's nice to have, because you can't really run that many other fusions. And as for if you don't have Dark Lord Morningstar, there's another alternative. So if you rolled the pack, the new selection pack, and you have the Grapha fusion, you can use Versago the Destroyer as a fusion substitute for Grapha Dragon Lord of the Dark World. So then you can make Grapha with this plus any dark monster. And this is basically just an Omni Negate. And it's nice that this card you can also revive with Ad Libitum. So it's actually like pretty formidable since you're running 3 Ad Libitums. I guess people might not suspect that you're on that, so you can constantly revive Grapha, and you know, it's pretty nice. It's actually I would recommend, if you have Grapha, to play the Versagos in place of stuff like maybe the Duster and the Reboot, or the Banishment, because the Banishment is not you don't really need this, honestly. Like, it's kind of win more, to be honest, but it's a nice disruption, I guess. But you don't, because you're probably never gonna search this with Alibur, and you're not running Albion, so there's really no way to. You're not really rarely ever searching this. So it's just a random 1-up that you draw into. But yeah, that either Grapha or the first Dark Lord, or if you have both, you can run both these fusion engines with Morningstar and Versago, and just have turn 1 you go Grapha as an Omni Negate that you can revive constantly with Ad Libitum, and then going second you can first Dark Lord nuke the field. That's pretty much it. I haven't tested against this format yet. I don't know if this is gonna be the most viable strategy, but in theory, like, I did a lot of test hands of this. This deck is really consistent at what it does, which is fuse a shit ton. You know, obviously you're running all gas plus draw spells. Of course it's gonna be consistent, right? And if you don't get debarriered, and I think you're fine against Lab.